Soldiers advance! Cross the river now! Yes, sir! Push through! Don't stop for anything! Push forward! Keep moving! Watch the current! Hold the line! Rafts hit! Brace yourselves!
It's 4 a.m., March 22nd, 1945. George Patton is standing on the east bank of the Rhine River. He shouldn't be here. Nobody should be here. The Rhine is supposed to take weeks to cross, months of planning, massive buildup of resources. Montgomery has been preparing his crossing for 30 days, assembling the largest amphibious operation since D-Day. But Patton crossed last night, in the dark. With almost no preparation, his engineers are already laying pontoon bridges. His tanks are already moving east. And in 48 hours, he won't just be across the Rhine. He'll be across 3 major rivers deep into Germany, and the entire German front will have ceased to exist. Not retreated, not withdrawn, simply ceased to exist. Because what Patton is about to do doesn't follow the rules of warfare. It follows the rules of physics.
Forward! Push through the river! Tanks, cover your bonds!
An object in motion stays in motion, and nothing the Germans have can stop an entire army moving at this speed. The Rhine crossing begins at 10:12 p.m. on March the 22nd near the town of Oppenheim. There's been no preliminary bombardment, no week-long artillery preparation, no massing of troops that would alert German intelligence. Patton has kept his assault battalions hidden until the last possible moment. The German defenders on the far bank are expecting another quiet night. They're wrong. The first assault boats hit the water at 10 p.m. exactly. 12-man infantry squads paddle across in darkness, their boats loaded with weapons, ammunition, and engineers. The Rhine here is 400 yards wide, moving fast with spring meltwater. The current tries to push the boats downstream, but the crews have trained for this. They angle upstream, letting the current carry them to their landing point. The crossing takes 8 minutes. 8 minutes of vulnerability, of exposure, of praying that German searchlights don't snap on and machine guns don't open up. They make it. The first wave hits the eastern bank and spreads out, securing a perimeter. No German reaction. The defenders are sparse here, spread thin across hundreds of miles of river. Patton has chosen his crossing point perfectly. Weak enough to penetrate, but positioned to drive straight toward the main river and the heart of Germany. The second wave launches immediately, then the third. By midnight, an entire regiment is across. By 2:00 a.m., engineers are assembling the first pontoon bridge. This is where Patton's obsession with speed becomes doctrine. Other armies would pause now, consolidate the bridgehead, bring up reinforcements, establish supply lines. Patton does the opposite. At first light, he has tanks crossing, not waiting for permanent bridges, not waiting for ideal conditions, rolling across pontoon bridges that bounce and sway under their weight. The first Sherman reaches the eastern bank at 6:00 a.m. By noon, an entire armored division is across and moved. The German response is chaos. Local commanders report American forces across the Rhine.
But assume it's a small raid. Corps headquarters demands clarification. Army group demands verification. By the time the German chain of command realizes this is a major crossing, Patton's lead elements are already 12 miles in. Counterattack orders are issued, but the units designated to respond are already engaged or have been bypassed. The German defense isn't breaking. It's being outrun. Patton crosses the Rhine himself at 10:01 a.m. on March 23rd, less than 12 hours after the first assault wave. He stops his jeep in the middle of the pontoon bridge, climbs out, and urinates into the river. It's not just theater. It's a message to his troops, to Eisenhower, to Montgomery, to history. This is how you cross the Rhine. You don't prepare for a month. You don't wait for perfect conditions. You move fast, you hit hard, and you don't stop. By the time he reaches the eastern bank, his engineers are already building a second bridge. The bridgehead is 8 miles deep, and Patton's orders to his forward commanders are simple. Keep moving. The next objective is the main river, 40 miles east. He expects to reach it tomorrow. By the morning of March 24th, Patton has 3 divisions across the Rhine and spreading out like a flood. The German front, already thin, begins to disintegrate under pressure it was never designed to have. Traditional defensive doctrine assumes attackers will pause after a major river crossing, consolidate, resupply. Patton doesn't pause. His columns are moving at maximum speed down every road, bypassing resistance, leaving strong points isolated and useless. The key to understanding what happens next is road speed. Patton's armored columns can move 30 miles per hour on good roads. German infantry retreating on foot or in horse-drawn wagons can manage maybe 3 miles per hour. The math is brutal. Every hour, the gap widens. German units trying to establish defensive lines find American tanks already behind them before they
in. Withdrawal orders arrive too late. Reinforcements moving toward the Rhine encounter American roadblocks already in their rear. The front doesn't collapse in one dramatic moment. It fragments into hundreds of isolated pockets, each one surrounded and irrelevant. Patton's forward reconnaissance units are operating 50 miles ahead of the main force, racing down highways, seizing bridges before German engineers can blow them. At 2:12 p.m. on March 24th, a recon platoon from the 4th Armored Division reaches a bridge over the main river near Aschaffenburg. The German demolition team is still wiring explosives. The Americans open fire, the Germans scatter, the bridge is intact. Within an hour, tanks are crossing. The main river, which should have been the next major defensive line, has been breached before the German High Command even knew the Rhine bridgehead had expanded this far. This is the moment the German defense transitions from stressed to shattered. Between the Rhine and the main river, there are now 2 American armored divisions moving at full speed with no organized resistance in front of them. German commanders issue retreat orders, but their units can't retreat faster than American tanks can advance. Radio communications break down. Courier motorcycles are intercepted. Entire battalions lose contact with higher headquarters and find themselves making decisions in isolation. Patton is physically present at the main river crossing by evening of March 24th. He has crossed 2 major rivers in less than 48 hours. His lead elements are now 60 miles beyond the Rhine, and he's not satisfied. The next objective is already identified, the WWII River, another 30 miles east. His operations officer suggests a pause to let supply lines catch up. Patton refuses. Supply lines can catch up while the armor keeps moving. Fuel trucks will just have to drive faster. The window of opportunity won't stay open forever. Speed is the only thing preventing the
Germans from reorganizing, and he will not give them time to breathe. By nightfall on March 24th, German Army Group B is in full crisis. Reports flooding into headquarters describe American spearheads everywhere, moving in multiple directions simultaneously. Standard defensive tactics require knowing where the enemy is and concentrating force against them. But Patton's forces are moving so fast that by the time German intelligence identifies their location, they've already moved. Counterattack orders are written, units are designated, assembly areas are chosen, and by the time the counterattack is ready to launch, the American units it's aimed at are 20 miles away. The Germans aren't fighting an army. They're fighting momentum itself. The main river crossing should have been a battle. German doctrine called for defending river lines with everything available, but when Patton's armor reaches the main on March 24th and 25th, there's almost nothing there. The German units assigned to
defend yet are still moving into position when American tanks arrive. Some bridges are taken intact, others are blown, but Patton's engineers have pontoon bridges up within hours. The river barely slows the advance. What's happening is unprecedented in modern warfare. The speed of Patton's advance has created a situation where German defensive lines exist only on maps. In reality, there are no lines. There are clusters of confused German units, cut off from communication, receiving contradictory orders, watching American columns drive past their positions without stopping to fight them. Traditional doctrine says you destroy the enemy. Patton is simply leaving them behind. His philosophy is that a German battalion isolated in a town is no threat. It can surrender later. What matters is the open road ahead. By March 25th, lead elements of the 4th Armored Division are approaching the WWII River. They've covered 90 miles in 3 days. The WWII is not a major obstacle, more of a
large stream than a river, but it represents a psychological barrier. Beyond it is the Thuringian heartland, industrial cities, transportation hubs. If the Germans are going to make a stand anywhere, it should be here. Patton's intelligence officers brief him on expected resistance. He listens, then issues movement orders that assume there will be no resistance. He's right. The first crossing of the WWII happens almost by accident. A reconnaissance patrol finds a ford, tests the depth, and radios back that vehicles can cross. No bridge necessary. Within 2 hours, an entire combat command is wading across. The few German defenders on the far bank retreat without fighting. By evening, engineers have a pontoon bridge up and tanks are pouring across. The third river in 72 hours. And the reaction from German headquarters is not to organize a counterattack. It's to issue withdrawal orders. Pull back to the next river, save what forces can be saved. The defense has transitioned from active to reactive, and in warfare, reactive equals defeated. What's destroying the German army is not casualty. Patton's forces are inflicting losses, but the killing isn't what's breaking the Wehrmacht. It's dislocation. German units are intact on paper, but they have no idea where they are in relation to the American advance. No communication with higher command, no clear orders. Colonels are making decisions that should be made by generals. Sergeants are making decisions that should be made by colonels. The chain of command has not been destroyed. It's been bypassed at such speed that it no longer functions. By March 26th, Patton's deepest penetrations are over 100 miles beyond the Rhine. He has crossed 3 rivers and is approaching a 4th. His supply lines are dangerously stretched. His flanks are theoretically exposed. His forces are operating in a manner that every military textbook says is reckless. And it's working perfectly because the Germans can't exploit
his weaknesses when they can't even locate his spearheads. The Wehrmacht is reacting to where Patton was yesterday, while his tanks are already focused on tomorrow's objectives. March 27th. Patton's Third Army has penetrated so deep into Germany that his forward units are now operating in areas that were considered rear area safe zones 72 hours ago. German supply depots are captured intact, their guards surrendering without a fight because they never imagined American forces could reach them this quickly. Airfields are overrun with planes still on the runways. Headquarters units are captured in their command posts, maps on the walls still showing American forces back at the Rhine. The psychological impact on German forces is devastating. Soldiers who thought they were safely behind the lines wake up to find American tanks in their towns. Units moving up to reinforce the Rhine defense discover that the battle they're marching toward is now 100 miles behind them.
Sense that the front is a definable line, that there's a safe zone and a combat zone, evaporates. Everywhere is the combat zone now. Everywhere is the American advance. Patton's technique is called reconnaissance in force, but that term doesn't capture the reality. His armored columns are driving down highways at maximum speed, literally racing each other to see who can advance farthest. When they encounter resistance, they don't stop to reduce it methodically. They call in artillery, pin the Germans down, and bypass them. The infantry following behind will deal with the strong points. The armor's job is to keep moving, keep the Germans off balance, never let them establish a coherent defensive line. By March 28th, elements of Patton's army are across the Fulda River. That's 4 major water obstacles in 6 days. The German High Command is issuing orders for a defense along the Mulde River, but those orders are fantasy. The units designated to defend the Mulde are scattered,
demoralized, and in many cases already bypassed. The defense exists in planning documents and nowhere else. What Patton has done is weaponize tempo. Every army moves at some speed. Patton has made his army move faster than the German army can think. OODA loop theory says combat is about observing, orienting, deciding, and acting faster than your enemy. Patton's tempo means that by the time German commanders observe his position, orient their forces to respond, decide on a course of action, and act on that decision, his forces have already moved and the entire cycle has to start over. It's not that the Germans are incompetent, it's that competent defensive action requires time, and Patton refuses to give them time. The collapse accelerates. March 29th, March 30th. Every day the advance continued. Every day the map of German-controlled territory shrinks. Entire divisions surrender, not because they've been defeated in battle, but because they've been isolated, surrounded, and have no way to fight or retreat. The kill ratio isn't particularly impressive, but the capture ratio is astronomical. Patton is taking prisoners faster than he can process them. Thousands, tens of thousands. All troops who could have fought, who were equipped and positioned to fight, but who never got the chance because the battle moved past them before they could engage. By April 1st, less than 10 days after crossing the Rhine, Patton's Third Army has advanced over 200 miles into Germany. His forces are approaching the Czechoslovakian border. The German army group facing him has effectively ceased to exist as a coherent fighting force. It still has units, still has soldiers, still has weapons, but it has no front line, no organized defense, no ability to conduct coordinated operations. It has become a collection of isolated pockets waiting to surrender. What happened here is not a normal military defeat. The Germans were not outfought in the traditional sense. They were not destroyed by superior firepower or tactics. They were paralyzed by speed they could not match and tempo they could not counter. Patton crossed the Rhine when Montgomery was still preparing. He crossed the Main when German defenses were still being organized. He crossed the Werra before the Germans knew he'd taken the Main. Each river should have been a battle. Each became a speed bump because Patton never gave the defenders time to prepare. The German army was built for many things. It excelled at mobile warfare, at combined arms operations, at tactical flexibility. But it was not built to defend against an opponent who moved faster than its command system could function. German radios had limited range. German orders moved by motorcycle courier and telephone landline. German defensive planning required time to assess, time to position, time to coordinate. Patton gave them none of those things. His tanks moved faster than German motorcycles. His radio network communicated faster than German telephone systems. His decisions were made at the front and executed immediately, while German decisions were made at headquarters far to the rear and arrived obsolete. The final truth of Patton's drive across Germany is that he proved speed could substitute for mass. Montgomery crossed the Rhine with meticulous preparation, overwhelming force, complete air superiority, and every advantage careful planning could provide. He advanced steadily, methodically, securing each position before moving next. Patton crossed with a fraction of the preparation, drove deep with exposed flanks and stretched supply lines, and advanced 3 times as fast. Both approaches worked, but only one approach made the enemy front disintegrate before it could fight. This wasn't about courage or firepower or tactical brilliance in individual battles. This was about understanding that in mobile warfare, the army that moves fastest controls the tempo of operations, and the army that controls tempo decides when battles happen, where they happen, and whether they happen at all. The Germans never got to fight the defensive battle they planned because Patton never gave them time to plan it. Every defensive line existed only in the imagination of the staff officers drawing it. By the time troops could reach those lines, American tanks were already past them. The German front didn't retreat eastward. It didn't conduct a fighting withdrawal. It didn't make the Americans pay for every mile. It simply evaporated, dissolved by an advance that moved faster than military organizations were designed to respond to. Patton's 3 river crossings in 48 hours weren't just impressive logistics. They were proof that in warfare, speed is not just an advantage. Speed is a weapon that can destroy an enemy without firing the decisive shot. The Germans didn't lose because they were defeated. They lost because they were outrun. And by the time they understood what was happening, Patton was already across the next river moving toward the next objective, leaving behind not a battlefield, but a wake of disoriented, bypassed, irrelevant German units that would spend the rest of the war wondering what had just hit them.